And welcome back. It's been more than a week since the X-H2S got launched, since the X-Summit that was held in May 31st. And I was out, I was on leave without any connection, so I couldn't watch any of it live. And what happened to me was that I looked at reviews on the pre-production samples before looking at the actual summit itself. Let me start with telling you something. I was very disappointed after looking at all the reviews or pre-reviews or first impressions. I was very disappointed when I finally watched the X-Summit, because that was sad. That looked like a funeral. Guys at Fuji, I know you're Japanese now. I don't know the Japanese culture that much, and I guess there's difference between the Japanese and the American way of doing business. But guys, you were celebrating 10 years from the moment you launched the system. You were celebrating the greatness of the system. You were announcing 2 cameras. You were announcing actually 1.5 camera. You were announcing 2 new lenses and more being added to the roadmap. That was supposed to be fun. That was supposed to be exciting. That was supposed to be a lot of things. That was not supposed to be a funeral. Come on, give us some joy. You should sell us those things. And that summit, if it was just for the summit, you wouldn't have sold 1 camera, just 1. If you happen to watch this, think about it. Next time, joy, bring us enthusiasm, bring us positiveness. That was not acceptable. Anyways, enough with the rants. Let's just start with what I think about the camera, with what would be the conclusions in a normal video. So, as I mentioned in my previous video, where this camera is going to even succeed or fail, that is autofocus, and to a lesser extent IBIS. Because we all know that already the X-T4 is a really nice camera, especially for stills is almost perfect, and for video the only thing we've been complaining about is, not the only, but the main things we've been complaining about is the continuous autofocus, the tracking continuous autofocus, the lack of subject recognition, and a little bit of a jerkiness of the IBIS. And so, in my opinion, and in everybody's opinion, these are the main things that needed to be dramatically improved over the X-T4 to get us what we needed. And unfortunately, from the dozens of reviews that I've seen, I can understand whether they nailed both or not. I feel a little bit positive on both, because from what I've seen, we at least have the subject recognition. They also added birds, animals, cars, trains, airplanes, and all of that. But we have what is called the subject recognition. So the system is there. It's not just an improvement of what the X-T4 does. It's a brand new system. So I am moderately positive on this. However, from the dozens of reviews that I've seen, it's impossible to tell whether it's currently working or not, because you go from very enthusiastic reviews, from very meh review on that. And so we will have to see. Though the autofocus system, it's key, is a key, and they need to nail it. And again, we don't know. On the other hand, however, the IBIS seem to have been improved, and everybody is pretty much confirming that. It seems like that the jerkiness is way less, and the IBIS is more usable, like handheld. During the X-Summit, they also mentioned that you would not need a gimbal. I don't trust that. I will now, until I see it with my own hands, with my own eyes, I'm never going to trust that. But it seems that the IBIS is it's there, and with a couple of firmware upgrades, it can only be better. Bottom line, It's a camera that it's sold at $2,500. And from what it is, and we're going to get into a little bit more details after, it seems like a lot if you compare it to the X-T4, for example, or to the APS-C market in general. But if everything is working as they're saying it is, this camera is competing with the top dogs in the camera industry, because it's competing against cameras that are like the R5, cameras like even the Z9, A1, and R3, although with some limitations. So if you look at it that way, and if everything is working the way they told us it is, it may also be considered a really good price for what it is. There's one thing that is for sure. If you're looking at this camera as an upgrade to the X-T4, I think that's a mistake. This is a very high-end camera, so you don't have to look at it. This is overkill for the vast majority of people that are shooting vlogs, normal pictures at wedding and stuff like that. This is way overkill. So the price is there because of that. It's a very advanced camera. And so if you don't need all of the bells and whistles that this camera is giving you, probably the best option would be to wait for the X-H2 or maybe the X-H2R. I don't know if they're going to call it in a different way, because they told us that the sensor is going to be called HR. So potentially they're going to call the camera HR, X-H2R. Or wait for the X-T5 that is going to come. We know it's going to come. We don't know when, but we know it's going to come. This camera is for those who are waiting a very professional Fuji camera with all the bells and whistles but the 8K, because yeah, this is doing 6K, and I guess for the majority of people this is way more than enough. Bottom line, I pre-ordered mine, but I'll keep my eyes open because I want to know whether I'm spending my money in a wise way or not. And believe me, this is overkill for me as well. I don't need all of that. If I'm buying the camera, it's because I'm curious to see what Fuji was able to come up with a super high-end camera, and for the channel because I want to be able to talk about it in the channel. But I personally don't need all of the bells and whistles that this camera has. And that's what I should probably mention, that right after I recorded the video, I dropped my X-T4 and my 18mm 1.4, and I basically destroyed the both of them. So I definitely need that camera right now. So from a body and design standpoint, this camera seems to be a smaller GFX 100S or GFX 50R2 and 50S2. And at the same time, it is even smaller than the X-H1, which is a good thing, and it also weighs a little bit less. So they were good enough at not exploding the camera when it comes to size and weight. However, if you look at the design of the camera, this is a very strong departure from the X-T line that we all know, and also from the X-H line. Gone are the physical dials for ISO and shutter speed. Gone are the clicky front and back wheels, which is something I don't really like. Gone is the autofocus, manual focus, continuous autofocus switch, which is now replaced by a button, and it seems like you can just tap it and cycle through. Then you have to move something else. I hope they fix that in the firmware. That seems to be the best solution. You just click it, and it changes. Well, we'll see. There is a PASM dial, which is what the majority of people is used to when it comes to like DSLRs or other brands, and they added 7 custom settings, which you can dedicate to either video or photos depending on what you need. Now, I don't know if I like it. I will have to try it. But overall, if you look at it without the eyes of an existing Fuji user, that kind of design makes sense. Unfortunately, they failed on at one thing that I wanted, which is a better design for the flip screen, something like the Panasonic. So it's basically the same design as the X-T4, but on the other hand, it seems like they dramatically improved the viewfinder, going with a high resolution 5.69, if I'm not wrong, and 120 hertz refresh rate. There's also a 240 hertz option, but I'm not interested in that, and it looks like there's some quirks. But again, it's still pre-production, so we just have to see if it's worth it or not. They also added the options for two different battery grips. One is super high-end for video capabilities. I'm not even gonna dive into that because it's too high-end. I see the potential, but I don't have a use case for that, so I didn't even like dive too much into it. And also a normal battery grip for a way cheaper price. The good thing is we don't need the battery grip other than having controls for the vertical and more battery life. That's it. The camera has all of what it needs in the main body. Speaking of that, they dramatically improved the left side of the camera because they finally added doors rather than flippy, hateful things that would get in the way of the monitor. And we now have a single door for each of the connections. We have microphone in, which is on top of the array, so it doesn't get in the way. We have headphone, finally. We have a full HDMI, finally, and we have the USB-C at the bottom. And on the other side of the camera, above the two car slot, which we're going to talk in a bit, we have the remote controller, which makes a lot of sense to be there rather than on the other side of the camera. As I said, the size and weight are like less than the X-H1, and it seems like that battery life, which is it's the same battery as the X-T4, they managed somehow to make it better than the X-T4, which is a huge thing. Also, they added the connections for the fan, the additional fan, which was scary at the beginning when the rumors came out because it seemed like the camera could overheat like a beast. But based on the reviews that I've seen, the camera doesn't overheat that much. The fan, the optional fan, is there only if you're shooting for very long time, very high frame rates in very warm environments. So it's fine. The camera doesn't need that in normal use. It'll need that in specific uses. In this case, I'm all for it. It makes sense, although it may seem quirky. Actually, I forgot to mention that the camera has CF Express and SD, so we're losing the double SD option, unfortunately, but that was to be expected with 6K and ProRes and all that. It was something that we had coming. The camera is improving an already great camera, which is the X-T4, in pretty much every aspect. We still have the 15 frame per second mechanical shutter. We have even 40 frames per second electronic shutter, and the buffer seems to be able to hold those 40 frames per second for something like 3 seconds with SD card and 4 to 5 seconds with a CF Express. They also added the option to shoot in a newer format, the HAIF, which iPhone users are used to. Others may not even know the existence. But in general, the X-T4 was already a great camera with great IBIS. Everything seems to be better in this. So from a photographic standpoint, I'm not concerned at all. And if the autofocus, the continuous autofocus works the way it's supposed to do, this is going to become a very interesting camera for sports and wildlife, something that the X-T4 was good at, but not super good. My only complaint when it comes to photographic capabilities is that they didn't add the multi-shooting, like the sensor shift technology. That would have been nice. For what concerns the video capabilities, I'm not gonna go too technical because Gerald Andan has pushed out a great focus on the video capabilities of the camera. So go watch that if you want to have more details, because he's way better than me at this. So I'm not gonna add anything to this. Of course, the main headline feature is the 6K 30 frames per second ProRes 422 internal and the possibility to shoot RAW with external. Although I think that the majority of people are gonna still use this camera as an oversampled 4K camera, which is also able to shoot 4K 120, which is good, although it's cropped. One thing that I would expect is we had 240 frames per second, although not the best, but we had those in the X-T4, and having the capability of shooting 4K 120, I would have expected the X-H2S to shoot higher frame rates to the likes of 480 frames per second in Full HD. It's not. They kept the 240. Unfortunately, it would have been nice. As I said, I'm not gonna dive in video too much, but what is gonna make the difference is the autofocus. The autofocus is gonna the continuous autofocus in video is gonna make a huge difference with this camera, because this is what is gonna make the success of the camera and the IBIS. In general, it's a great video camera. It looks like it's a great video camera, but it would be nice if they added more overlays, exposure aids, such as waveform or other, like false color and all of that. There's no shutter angle option, at least that's what it seems, and no one is talking about a potential time-lapse option to generate just a video, which is something that I wanted. But other than that, it seems like a great video camera from many aspects. In the X-Summit, they also announced a lot of other stuff. The 18 to 120 power zoom seems to be a great idea, although Jordan from DP Review has some doubts on that. I hope to see more from them. He's talking about issues with sharpness and bokeh. But we'll see. In general, the concept is nice, and I'm looking forward. I already pre-ordered that as well, although I know it's gonna come in September. And the Jordan's doubt are probably due to the fact that it's very pre-production sample. So I'm very positive that they're gonna get it right. That lens makes a lot of sense for filmmakers, although it doesn't have OIS. If the IBIS in the camera is good, it's not going to be a big problem, and the size and weight make sense. Together with the power zoom, and it is a parfocal lens, so finally we have a parfocal lens that we can use in video if we need. The 150 to 600 seems to be a great lens, although being 5.6 to f8, I don't know if it's going to sell a lot, because f8 it's gonna force you to shoot very high ISO as soon as the light drops a little bit. And if you're a wildlife shooter, usually dawn at dusk is when you get the best, and this is gonna drive your needs towards high ISO, which seems to be good on the H2S, but I would have loved something more to the likes of the 200 to 600 Sony, which is 6.3, I guess. So at the longest end. Anyways, we needed this lens, so it's better to have it than not have it. Well, we'll see. I'm not particularly interested right now, so I didn't order it, but I'm curious to know. They also announced the Mark II version of the 56 1.2 finally. And if they keep the quality that they provided us with the 18, 33, and 23, that lens is going to be spectacular. I have no doubts. And I also know that it's going to cost a little bit more than the previous version did. But again, this is something that we needed. They also announced that 30mm f2 macro, which is, depending on the price, it's going to be a very interesting lens. Of course, if they ask $1,000, it's not going to make any sense. But if the price is reasonable, that is a lens that is going to have some success in my opinion. And then they launched also a weird 8mm f3.5 they launched. They announced in the roadmap a weird 8mm f3.5 lens, which, depending on the quality and the reliability of the autofocus, may become a vlogger's dream lens, because you're gonna get basically the GoPro look, but with a higher quality and, like, in general, a lot of possibility. I'm very interested in that lens. Maybe I am the only one, but I'm very interested in that lens. Anyways, to sum it up, I would love to see Fuji launch more lenses like the last launched by Fuji. Those lenses make a lot of sense. The 11mm f2.8, very small, plasticky, but I don't care, very lightweight. The 10-24, again, plasticky, power zoom, super small, super lightweight. And the 15, I don't need the 15, I don't care about the 15, but the other two lenses would make a lot of sense, because we're talking about less than 200 grams, which compared to the 10-24 is a lot less, and they're much smaller. I would like to see Fuji focusing more on those kind of lenses. For those that need video a little bit more than pictures, because we have great pictures lenses. Like for stills, we're pretty much covered pretty much every solution. But for video, we need something different, and I would hope for them to do it. In general, again, as I said, I already pre-ordered the X-H2S and the 18-120, and I'll let you know as soon as I have them how they are. And I hope that they nail the camera and the lens also, because these things are going to make a huge difference for the future of the system. That's it for today. As usual, I thank you for watching this video, and I'll ask you to leave me a like, subscribe to the channel, and share the video, as well as following me on Instagram in my two Instagrams account. That's it for today. Again, I'll see you in the next one, and ciao.